You are listening to the FORSCOM Frontline, bringing you to our soldiers on the front lines of readiness. Hey everyone, welcome to the FORSCOM Frontline. I'm Ashley and I'm your host. Today I am joined by the command team of the 1st Corps. Lieutenant General Xavier Brunson and Command Sgt. Major Shawn Carns are joining us from Joint Base Lewis McChord, where the Corps is headquartered. They are responsible for the daily activities of more than 44,000 soldiers stationed there at JBLM and across the Pacific, to include Hawaii and Alaska. The command falls under both FORSCOM and U.S. Army Pacific and is charged with enhancing security and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. But they're here to tell us more all about that. So welcome, Lieutenant General Brunson and Command Sergeant Major Carns. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
So I'm going to start with you, General Brunson. I spoke a little bit about what the 1st Corps mission is, but can you break it down a little bit more, maybe talk about some of the things going on around the command?
Okay, well, the first thing I would tell you is that you already stated the important part. The command stretches from Hawaii all the way to Alaska. Our day-to-day work is to produce effects within the Indo-Pacific region. And when you look at that, that's a long ways from here.
Yeah.
So everything that we do starts out by going west to get to the east. And so that makes it tough.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is have persistent presence west of the international date line. So what that calls us to do is try to figure out new and innovative ways to get our formation forward, whether that be 3 to 5 people or whether it be the entirety of the Corps staff, some 500 to 600 people. We have to get that forward so that we can be present. Sure. If we're present, then we can be persistent, but persistence requires our presence to be there. So we're doing a lot of things at distance. So what we're trying to do with that is look at distributed command and control, distributed C2, to find different ways to shape what the Corps is to achieve effects forward. So we might reassure our partners and our allies in the region that we're going to be there. We're going to get there for you. Over the past year, we've been everywhere from Korea to Japan to Indonesia to Thailand to Brunei to Malaysia. I could just continue to name India, naming all the places this Corps has been because it's important. Our national defense strategy and our national security strategy all point toward our pacing threat, which is China. The only way we can pace with that threat is to be present. Sure. So that's what I believe both FORSCOM and USERPAC are asking us to do, and that's to be present in the region. You've heard about some other things. You talk about Alaska. We just reflagged the 11th Airborne Division, or USERAC, to the 11th Airborne Division. That's important. It's part of our Army's Arctic strategy. And as the Corps headquarters, the operational command, we're tasked with trying to resource that headquarters and operationalize them to do the mission that's required by the nation. What doesn't change, regardless of where this Corps is focused, is that we're part of America's Army. And the Army's job is to fight and win our nation's wars. Absolutely. And so we try to prepare to do that all the time. The only distance is we have to get some transportation. We need a ride to work every day. And so another big change for us here is we've got a new Corps Command Sergeant Major. And Shawn Carns comes to the Corps from 2ID. And 2nd ID is right there in Korea. So one of the nations that we're tasked with supporting is in Korea. Right. Some of our plans lead us to Korea. And so his experience is great for the Corps as well. So I'll stop right there, Ash.
Well, so I just, you were talking about all of the countries that you have been to. And I think even for me, working at FORSCOM and having worked with the Army for so long, those just aren't countries that I think of all that often. You think about Germany, you think about, I don't know, Belgium even, but you don't think about Indonesia.
No, we don't. And what's really unique about our region is, you mentioned like Germany and Belgium. Well, those are treaty allies. Yeah. They're in NATO. That gets to be pretty easy. Most of the work that we do in the region is through bilats, bilateral agreements from one country to the United States. So that's whether that be Japan or Korea or Australia even. Those bilateral relationships are what really drive us. So we're in all those places because we have to sustain those relationships that we have with those nations.
It's really interesting. And so you kind of led me to my next question for Sergeant Major. So you've really only been here for a couple of months, but how do you hope that your background is going to help support the soldiers of First Corps in the mission?
Well, actually, it's a great question. And so, my leadership philosophy, what I consider is building relationships, build on inspiration, trust, taking care of others and serving others. I think that's very important. But, going back to the relationship piece, and the CG said about how we're geographically dislocated in different directions, right?
Yeah.
And then we have all the exercise that we do over in the Pacific. And so it's about building relationships and building those relationships in JBLM with here, but then also building it with our other organizations that are dislocated, right? So we can build the trust with them to understand what they're doing and how we as a Corps headquarters can be able to assist them, right? Because again, they're geographically dislocated. So it's about, continuing that communication with them, building that relationship with them. And it's just not, build it, but then we also have to maintain it.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's just not we go out there one time and you're good for the next 3 years, right? We have to go out there and continue to go out there and see them and help them with their challenges, because that is what's going to help prepare them to be ready for the next exercise or possibly the next deployment that might come up here in the near future. So once you build that relationship, that's where you get the trust, you get the inspiration, right? Then we trust what they're doing. So whenever, we do one of our SATBs, our situational training briefs, that, hey, we know that they're ready to do the next exercise, do next deployment, right? Because we built trust with them because we've been present, as the CG said, on ground, got the ground truth, and developed the relationship with them.
Yeah. And so you started talking about something that I want to get to, but I'm not going to jump there yet because I'm going to go to you again, General Brunson, before we go there. So across the Army, suicide prevention has been a top priority. And I know there's a lot going on out at First Corps. Can you talk about some of the things you're doing to get after this?
Yeah. For us, it begins with moving as far left as we possibly can. And that's availing our leaders and our soldiers and even our family members access to care. It's the recognition that we have chaplains, we have MIFLICs, we have behavioral health professionals, we have good leaders here that can all be part of the solution to the scourge that is suicide. It's one of the harmful behaviors that our chief, that our secretary, that our vice chief, that the FORSCOM commander has talked about over and over and over again, because we've got to do something.
Yeah.
But by having a prevention mindset, we remove ourselves from the need to have to answer questions on the other side. So I think the holistic approach that we're trying to take is take a look at all the resources that are available, change the culture so that people see that it's okay to seek help, and then allow them the time necessary to get right, if you will.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in any pejorative sense at all, but we all, whether it's in our relationships, there are times when my wife and I have to just stop because we know we are going the wrong way. Okay? And so we go and see the chaplain, or we go and talk to a counselor. We've done that over the course of 28 years being married. And there are also times when we all need a little bit of help, and we have to go see it and seek it out, whether it's through stress in combat, to stop and say, you know what, I need to go talk to somebody. We believe that if we can build that kind of culture here on the installation, we start to change people's perception on suicide, availing them to all the services that are out there. A financial problem, you start to look into some of these and you go, well, this person committed suicide because of a relationship problem. And you think, well, we've got people for that. We have counselors that will help them with that. Or there were money pressures in the family. How is it that we didn't get them to AER to get them the grant so that they could get through that problem?
Yeah.
But what Sergeant Major and I are really trying to do is, and I don't mean this in any bad sense at all, but leaders have to be accountable for these things. Because a leader should say, you know what? Carns is having a bad time right now. Let me go sit down with Carns and talk to him and get Carns to the level of care that can take care of him. Yeah. And I think that if we can do those things, then we start to alleviate some of this because it's absolutely devastating when a suicide happens in a family, in a unit, in a community. But we've got to get people to see that they can get the help that they need, and we've got it here for them. But it's ending that stigma, seeking help. It's building this culture where it's okay to go get help. And it's making sure that everybody is aware of all the resources that are available. I think if we can do those three things, we start to change it a little bit. And we've seen some instances where that has begun to start changing it. And we have to really look at all the components that we are. It's sleep, it's nutrition, it's physical fitness, it's spiritual fitness, it's mental fitness. That's what H2F is going to do. And as our Corps being one of the first corps to pilot the full-on H2F system, and maybe Sergeant Major can talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing in terms of nutrition, having healthy food available to people, and making sure that we give them the opportunity to be the absolute best they can be. I always say that people that are in the Army should be better because the leaders that we have here were there. And so I think that's what we really want to do, is make that holistic approach to solving problems, and then we think we can get after it, Ash.
You know, I'm really glad that you brought up H2F because I actually talked to Colonel Hurd back, I think, in January about First Corps and H2F and your implementation of it. And I worked with him in Germany at Regional Health Command Europe, so it was nice catching up with him again. But I recently spoke with him again, and he told me about a soldier who, it was with the 62nd Med Brigade, and the soldier was, I'm actually going to look at my paper. He required extensive knee surgery. He had complications after surgery, was going to be transferred to the Wounded Warrior Battalion, but he worked with his H2F team, strength and conditioning, PT, nutrition, all of the things you mentioned. And now he's back to work with 90% of his functionality. That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's not the only story.
Oh, I'm sure.
When you look at what really excites me is the way that the units have taken to this. In soft units, you have a thing called 4-3, and that's well-resourced, and it's the same kind of things now that we're bringing to the conventional force to give them the opportunity to get better. And it also shows that we care enough to get nutritionists and physical therapists and chaplains and MIFLICs and counseling to take care of the whole person. It's not just the physical.
Yeah.
The fact that he's 90% better, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But what's most amazing is that his command took the time to get him to the resources necessary to get him there.
Absolutely.
That's a soldier for life right there, Ashley.
Absolutely.
That's a soldier that knows that when he has any kind of problem, he's going to go to his command because they provided resources for him previous.
Yeah. I'm looking at my paper, but he says that it saved his career. You know, this program saved his career. That's just it. Just to think that this program is then going to go out to the rest of the Army too, and we're hopefully this isn't going to be the only soldier that has a success, and that's exciting.
There'll
to
be
see.
more stories.
And you know, another thing, Ashley, too. So you know, it's just not when they go to H2F, but then you know, our NCOs, our leaders, are also getting a little bit of training. So when they're done with H2F or still in H2F, when they come back to the unit, they're still getting the care that they need.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just not, hey, go to H2F, you're done. Right.
Right.
When they come back to the unit, they're also getting some assistance to be able to continue that care until their next deployment at H2F.
Sure. And so I wanted to go back to you, Sergeant Major Carns. We talked about suicide a little bit, and we talked about leadership a little bit. But when we talk about suicide, we often talk about engaged leadership. But engaged leadership is more than just suicide prevention as well. It directly impacts so many things. Can you talk about, well, I guess you've already talked about your leadership style a little bit, but can you talk about the importance of engaged leadership and how that really impacts a soldier and the unit?
Yes, of course. And you're exactly right. Engaged leadership can mean a lot of stuff, right?
Right.
I go back to, you know, my leadership style, you know, talking about relationships. I think, you know, that's where any engaged leadership starts. You have to get to know your soldier professionally and personally, right? So professionally, you know, what is his or her goals? And how am I assisting him or her to meet those goals in the military, right? And then personally, hey, do I know their mom and dad? Do I know if they have brothers and sisters? Do they like dogs? Do they like cats? What's their hobbies? Do they like baseball, softball, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm building a relationship professionally and personally with them. So when Carns comes into work one day and Brunson comes in, and I can tell there is a mood change. And guess what? I'm going to, hey, everything okay today? Are you okay? Any issues? Because I built that relationship with him.
Right.
Right. And I understand his moods. I understand his emotions because I'm empathetic and I understand that. Right. I can be in his shoes because I understand him. So building a relationship is huge. The first piece of leader engagement. And then the second piece, after I build that relationship, then engaging. I'm intervening. Right. Yeah. When I'm seeing something that is just not right, I'm engaging. Right. I'm intervening, I'm helping out the situation or making corrections on the situation, right? That's where you get engaged. You have to build that relationship first to understand that person before I can actually engage or intervene into a situation.
I talked to the EOD Team of the Year winners a couple weeks ago, and they're just a 2-person team, and you could tell immediately that their relationship and the trust that they had in each other, which is super important in EOD, obviously, but it just, I don't know, maybe I didn't have a point to that, but just to go off of what you said, it really is super important to have that trust in that relationship.
So you bring up, we just got done with our best squad competition here, Ashley, and awarded our best squad from 42nd MP Brigade. And exactly what I told them. So, in the squad, you have individuals. So each individual's got to perform for that squad. But guess what? It comes down to the team effort.
Yeah.
Right? Because one day, I'm going to hit the wall and I'm going to be sucking. But guess what? My team knows that because they built a relationship with me. They engaged in me to help me through that when I hit the wall, to get through that wall, and we all go across that finish line together, right? That is a team effort. That is a relationship, and that's engaged leadership.
Right. And one of the things they said was, in the EOD field, to be able to be the E4 and speak up to the E7 and say, hey, what you're doing isn't the right way to do that. Or maybe we should think about it this way. Just to be able to speak up and say that sort of thing to somebody who is higher up than you, I think is important.
Agree 100% with you.
So, sir, I'm going to go back to you. We've not talked, like I mentioned before, about the Indo-Pacific region much on this podcast. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that mission and why it's so important to the Army.
Okay. Well, first off, because people won't understand this as well, but First Corps is the operational command in a theater army, and that's USARPAC, U.S. Army Pacific. And our role there is really to assure our partners and friends and allies in the region that the United States will be there. The National Defense Strategy talks about combining strengths in order to achieve the objectives of the strategy. And part of that for us is integrated assurance. The strategy talks about integrated deterrence, but for us it's integrated assurance. And as noted by General Flynn, that's a mix of our capabilities, our posture, the messaging that we have in the region, and then our national will to actually be there. And so that's our job. And for us, again, I mentioned it before, we've got to be present. We have to be there. And our persistent presence is what begins to change things there. That's how we assure them, by being there. Hey, puppy.
They're driving me crazy right now.
That dude's agreeing with what I'm saying right now. He's picking up what I'm putting down. But more importantly, we've got leadership. And our secretary calls the Army the linchpin of the joint force in the Pacific. That's what the Army is, the linchpin. And if we're the linchpin, that takes into account the fact that we set the theater. That takes into account that we have soldiers that are skilled in the Arctic and in the Pacific, in the jungles. We've got this little campaign we call Pick Your Mount. And there's a picture of Diamond Head on it. There's a picture of Mount Rainier. And then there's a picture of Mount Denali. And that really talks about the spread of this command. We're from the tropics to the Arctic.
Crazy.
And we've got to be skilled in all those areas so that as the Sergeant Major and I travel around, we're making sure that our squads are manned properly, that our forces are equipped properly for the mission that they're supposed to do, and that they're ready, that they understand the things that are necessary for us to assure our partners. And it starts at the very individual soldier level. Everything that you're talking about with us right now, it begins with the individual. The fact that that soldier is now 90% more capable out of the 62nd Med Brigade means that that soldier can go forward and do his mission wherever he's called across the region. Right. But for us, that integrated assurance really starts right here from the headquarters at Joint Base Lewis McChord, making sure that we are resourcing properly our soldiers so they can do the best job that they can.
You know, you said something, and I hadn't actually thought about it before. You know, you have soldiers in the Arctic and you have soldiers in the jungle. You know, I mean, you think about, I don't know, the 18th Airborne Corps. Their soldiers, they have some at Fort Drum and they have some, you know, in North Carolina, but it's not so drastically different as the jungle and the Arctic.
Right. And they're all on the East Coast.
Well, there's that too. So, Sergeant Major Carns, we said before, you've been in this position for a couple of months now. So I'm curious, what have you learned so far and what's your way ahead? You know, what do you hope to accomplish while you're at the First Corps?
So what I've learned so far is there is a lot of stuff going on here in First Corps, right? So, you know, I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that goes on because there's a lot going on, a lot. So, you know, first I would say is, you know, as I talked about, there's stuff going on. There's processes. There's stuff we're doing already. How can I and me and Xavier Brunson continue to make it better? Because it's just not about us while we're here. How are we making it better for the future? Absolutely. Right? What are we leaving for the next team that comes in? And then they can continue to make it better for the United States Army, right? Make it better every single day. And be a constant learner. You know, I mean, Xavier Brunson has been great bringing me on board, you know, and helping me out as my Ranger buddy. But being a learner from him, learning from him, but then learning from the other commands too, right? Because again, I don't know everything. So you got to be humble, as you were just talking about, right? The NE4 come up to me and say, "So Major, this might not be right." You know, I got to humble myself and be a humble leader. And, you know, going out and talk to the Sergeant Majors and being a constant learning and learning about their organizations and what's going on. So we as the Corps headquarters can wrap our arms around them and be the headquarters that they need to assist them to make them more ready for the next exercise or deployment when we might come up on.
Sounds good. So I appreciate you both taking this time to talk with me. And I know that you both have busy schedules and it's the end of the day for you on a Friday. My kids have already ate and I kicked them out of the house so I could talk to you guys. But I know you're busy. But before I let you go, I want to give each of you an opportunity just to share some final thoughts. So Sergeant Major, we'll start with you.
So first thing, thank you very much, Ashley, for this. Because as I tell my PAO team all the time, I think it's very important for Command Sergeant Majors to be able to do podcasts, to do interviews, to write articles. Because, you know, one thing I say is if you can read, write, and speak, you're dangerous, right? And where do we, you know, we're usually pretty good at reading, pretty good. Writing, we need work on, and we need work on speaking. I do all three. So I think it's important to get the word out of the Sergeant Major and the NCO Corps because, you know, we're the backbone of the Army, right? As Xavier Brunson is planning for, hey, where we're going in the future, it's my responsibility to get everyone behind us, behind his intent and where we're going, right? And that's a lot. That's a lot. So, you know, I think it's very important for the non-commissioned officer corps to do stuff like this to get our word out, what we're doing, to the rest of the United States Army and to, you know, the United States and the world. I think it's very important. So I appreciate everything you're doing and thank you very much for having us on this episode.
Well, thank you, Sergeant Major. I am always happy to talk to Sergeant Majors. I am married to an enlisted guy, so I enjoy speaking with you all. So, sir, over to you.
Yeah, I would just echo what the Command Sergeant Major said and say thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk for just a few moments here It's gone a lot faster than I thought it would. About our core. And at its core, this core is built to meet the needs of our nation. That's what we're built to do, like any other corps in the Army. We just happen to do it in a different place. But what we really want folks to know is that we're thinking about what's out there. We're thinking about the adversaries of our nation, wherever they might be. And we're not just bound to the Pacific and the Arctic. We'll go anywhere that FORSCOM or USAPAC tells us to go. And as our chief says, winning matters. And we're going there to win, not to try hard, not to do the best we can. The soldiers in the jungle might need to go to the Arctic to help out. The soldiers in the Arctic have been to the jungles here recently. But that's what we do here. And would encourage folks to look at our social media and learn more about the First Corps and to come join us and come pick your own mountain, whether that be in the jungles or in the Arctic or even right here at Joint Base Lewis McChord. We welcome all to come out here and join us. Thank you again for your time and attention. And thanks for what you do as an Army spouse as well.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Before I let you go, you mentioned the guys who are in the Arctic have done the jungle. So I spoke with the jungle warfare team last year, I think it was. And I was like, why does the jungle even matter? And if I'm not going to the jungle, why do I need to train in the jungle? And he's like, his response was amazing. And I don't exactly remember it, but I don't know. It was just interesting to talk to them and learn, you might not be going to the jungle now, but you could in the future.
And it's about giving our soldiers the skills necessary to survive. One of the ways that we engage in the Army is through training. Yeah. That is like the greatest opportunity for our leaders to engage with our soldiers is when they're out training them. And you would be amazed at how hungry folks are for new skills. The soldiers in the Arctic are excited because they're getting new equipment and they're learning new things about how to not just survive in the Arctic, but to thrive there, which is what the Arctic strategy calls us to do, is to thrive in that austere environment.
Which I am going to assume is not easy. I don't think I would survive.
Not after living in Fayetteville for 3 more years, you won't.
I am enjoying the warmth of Fayetteville. I'm not going to lie. But I won't take up any more of your time. I do appreciate it. And thank you for sharing First Corps with me and helping me learn a little bit more.
Thank you again, Ashley. Take care. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You
and
too.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.